You're going to win your life back by listening to some of the beautiful opportunities available that Dr. Noah St. John is going to share with us today. So, welcome to the show, Dr. Noah St. John.
Well, thank you, Sherry. It's such a pleasure and a privilege to be here.
Seeing that you've already done 24 books, which in and of itself is a remarkable accomplishment, I think a lot of our listeners today are going to be a little overwhelmed once they hear you and they read, but know everyone that it all starts with that first step. And that first step is really starting to get into your own life as an individual and thinking about kickstarting your habits for success. How do you kick them off? So I'm going to ask you, a lot of our listeners and myself have our mental roadblocks, or I guess what you would call head trash. So, how can individuals kind of kickstart their habits for success, for health and wealth, because we know they're linked, and kind of overcome their own mental roadblocks or head trash?
Well, this is what I've been teaching people for over 26 years now, Sherry. So this is right in my wheelhouse, everything that you just talked about. So what I always focus on with my coaching clients, whether it's one-on-one coaching or group coaching, or in my online programs or in my books and my seminars, it's always about that person's goals, dreams, what they want, their desires. Okay. Now, everybody talks about, setting goals and SMART goals and all this stuff. We hear a million things about that. And it's all important, right? Because we humans are goal-oriented organisms. Okay, so what that means is, we're always striving for something we want, whether it's a new car, a new job, to start a business, to, write a book, to have a new car, to have a ham sandwich for lunch. I mean, whatever you're talking about, we're always thinking about what it is that we want and how can we achieve it faster and easier with less stress and less effort, right? That's never going to stop. And so that's what I've been studying for really over 40 years now. I started when I was a kid, just always, I was always fascinated by human behavior and specifically this phenomenon of success because I grew up poor in a rich neighborhood. And I know that's a total cliche, but it's totally true. I grew up in a little town called Kennebunkport, Maine, which is one of the wealthiest communities in New England. But my family was dirt poor. And I mean that literally because we lived at the bottom of a dirt road in a drafty, unfinished house that my parents ended up losing to foreclosure when I
Oh,
was just 15 years old. So from a very young age, I was painfully exposed to the gap, the chasm between the haves and the have-nots. The haves was everyone else in the community. The have-nots was my family. So I hated being poor. I hated it because, you hear speakers, they get on stage like a motivational speaker or whatever, and they'll say, well, we were poor, but we were happy. We didn't know we were poor. Well, in my family, we freaking knew we were poor because my mother, bless her heart, reminded us every day that we were poor and miserable. So no, it wasn't happy. It sucked. So I hated being poor. So my goal was always, I don't want to be poor. I want to be, if you want to say rich, wealthy, well-to-do, whatever word you want to use, I just want to be successful. So how the heck do you do that? Well, of course, when I was a kid growing up, there was no internet, there was no other things that we have today. So I just went to the library and read every book in the self-help section. I just read every book, all the classics, Dale Carnegie, Napoleon Hill, Stephen Covey, and all the rest. And so I really, really applied myself for years and years and years, had a lot of ups and downs. I decided to commit suicide at age 25. So just tons of things like that happened. And then, so in 1997, I started my company, successclinic.com, in a 300 square foot basement apartment with $800 to my name and a book on HTML. Because after all those years and years of studying and realizing even though I was working really hard, I could never get it to work. I realized that there were missing things that no one was talking about. Even all those classic books, they just left out all the good stuff, it seemed to me. And so I said, well, gosh, I got to write my own book. And so I wrote my first book in 1998. And it was subsequently published by the Chicken Soup for the Soul publisher in 1999. And now, as you mentioned, 24 books later in 18 languages, that's what, I've been able to do. So when it comes to setting goals and habits, to talk about specifically what we're talking about, it always starts with our goals, right? What it is that you want. So what a lot of people don't realize is that there are three types of goals that we humans have, right? I talked about the fact that we humans are goal-oriented organisms, right? So there's three types of goals. Most people are only thinking about, oh, I want a new car, I want a new house, whatever. Well, actually, the three types of goals that I help my clients achieve is being, doing, and having. All right. So being, habit, or goals of being are like, I want to be happy. I want to be rich. I want to be healthy. I want to be fulfilled. I want to have peace of mind. Right. So all of those like being goals, which a lot of people forget about, they're chasing after money and stuff like that, which is fine. Nothing wrong with it. But they forget, like, if there's a lot of miserable millionaires out there, and I've
True
coached a
enough.
lot of them. You know what I mean? So it is true that money isn't everything. Yes, that's true. But of course, money's very, very important, right? I mean, just ask somebody like me who grew up poor and say, yeah, no, money's very important. So anyway, the goals of being, that's number one. Number two is goals of doing, right? Like I want to take my family on a trip to the Grand Canyon. I want to, go to Hawaii. I want to have more time with my family, whatever that is. So the goals of doing, and then the goals of having, right? I want to have a new car. I want to have a book that I publish. I want to have an online business, right? So there's all of those goals that are very, very important. So for the folks listening and, listening to the program today, think about what it is that you want to achieve in the next 12 months in those three categories of goals, okay? Being, doing, and having. So here is one of the reasons that I've helped my clients make over $3 billion over the last 25 years and really help people scale up to 6, 7, and even 8 figures while also winning their lives back. As you mentioned, I'm known for helping people make more in just 12 weeks than they did in the previous 12 months while winning back 1 to 3 hours per day and 4 to 8 weeks per year. Now, that last part of the sentence is very important. I want people to realize that because, of course, there's a lot of people out there teaching the hustle and grind.
Right.
And the hustle, I call them the hustle bros, right? Because they're always like, hey, you got to be working 14, 16, 18 hours a day. If you're not working on Christmas Eve, you're a loser. And, don't take any time off and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, I mean, maybe that works for some people. But to me, I'm like, are you nuts? I want to have a life.
Right.
I mean, and, for the folks listening who, are business owners, entrepreneurs, your business should serve to support your lifestyle, not the other way around. You shouldn't live to support your business. Your business should exist to support you, your dreams, your lifestyle, and what you want. However, most don't do that. Right?
No, they
Most aren't
don't.
doing it that way. And so the point is that, when we look at those types of goals and then, the three types of goals I mentioned, what instantly happens for so many people is the very next thought they have is, yeah, but I don't think I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
See, now that is exactly what I've been fixing for the last 25 years. And one of the reasons I help people not only make so much money, but also win their lives back is because of that very thing that most of those gurus just aren't talking about. They're just saying, oh, set your goals, set your goals, set your goals. Well, that's great. But they forget that we're dealing with human beings, 99% of whom have this thing that I like to call head trash. Head trash is the voice in your head that says, I can't do it, right? Oh yeah, I want that, but I don't think I can do it. Or I want this, but I don't think I can have that. Or I don't think I can ever be that. And, blah, 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 blah. And so you just fill in the blank. And so for the folks listening, I want you to realize that whatever happens, whenever you say, I want this, but I can't do it because, whatever happens after the word because is in fact the reason that you're stuck. And that is what's causing, as I like to call it, your income ceiling. And so what I'm known for is helping people break through their income ceiling and, as I mentioned, make more in 12 weeks than they did in the previous 12 months while winning their lives back at the same time.
Okay, so this sounds to me, as you just said it, as a confidence issue. And my experience when you start working at confidence is it starts somewhere and you need to start looking at what is it? What is that builds your confidence? And it's a fun read that your book really promotes is there's first recognizing it that but I can't. First, those words in and of itself, you just have to recognize them, like adopt that reality that I'm recognizing I'm setting up my head trash space. I need to recognize it. I need to embrace it. Okay, now what? What's the quick win habits you recommend for building confidence?
Yes, absolutely. So the point is that in fact, I just wrote a book on confidence, ironically, called The Power Habits of Unstoppable Self-Confidence. So it goes along with everything that I've been teaching about head trash. So you could argue that I've written 24 books on this one subject, which is how to take out your head trash. Okay, because there's lots of ways to look at this.
There's a lot of reading involved here, isn't there?
Well, you don't have to read all of them, but hey, I recommend them, of course. Anyway, so the point is that one of the things that I help people with is to, number one, realize that your head trash is almost always unconscious. Okay, so one of the things that I'm known for is teaching what I call the power habits of unconsciously successful people. Now, that sounds like a mouthful, but it's really very simple when you break it down. So, what I realized many years ago is that highly successful people are doing things unconsciously that they don't even know they're doing, and therefore they can't teach it to you. All right. So, whenever we humans want to master a new habit, we go through 4 stages of competency. The first stage is unconscious incompetence. That means you don't know, you don't know. The second stage is conscious incompetence. That means you don't know. The third stage is conscious competence, which is you know, you know. And then the final stage is unconscious competence, which is you do without thinking. So like in my seminars or my keynote speeches, whether I'm teaching, live or virtually for companies, teams, organizations all around the world, one of the things I like to do is give them an example, right? And I say, how many people here know how to drive a car? Of course, almost everybody raised their hand. I said, did you realize that you had to go through these 4 stages to drive a car? The first stage is you didn't know how to drive a car, right? Nobody comes out of the womb and says, hey, where's my car?
Right.
Right. I mean, you don't even know you don't know, right? The second stage is you get to a certain age, you're like, wait a minute, I want to get away from my parents. Oh gosh, I only have a bicycle. I can't get far enough away. Wait a minute, I need to know how to drive a car, but oh gosh darn it, I don't know how to drive a car. So now I know I don't know. Then the third stage is you learn how to drive a car, right? You learn, and of course, if you can remember, I mean, I remember I took driver's ed in a Buick that was about the city block long, right? And it was like,
Yep.
wow, there's so many things coming at you, and your brain literally, if we could study your brain, master a new habit, it's literally just like an overload, like so many stimuli coming at it, right, every second. But now, of course, today for most folks listening to this program, now of course you do it without thinking. You are unconsciously competent at this task, which used to be really hard, right? Well, what I realized many years ago is it's exactly the same thing with success. Okay. And what I mean by that is, there's other books and trainers out there, like Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, and many books like that. And what they talk about is the conscious habits. So in other words, like Napoleon Hill, for example, he interviewed all these successful people. He said, hey, how'd you get so successful? Well, you do this, 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 and this. Okay. He wrote that down. So how come millions of people have read that book and books like that and they're not successful? They're still stuck because they're talking about conscious habits. So what I teach that's different is the unconscious habits. That means, going back to the story I shared, I read every book. I'm like, how come I'm not successful? I'm doing everything they told me.
Right.
It's all the stuff they leave out. It's everything they left out that's important. And that's why, a lot of people, they hire me to coach them, whether it's one-on-one or group coaching or, bring me into their organization after they've gone to all the gurus and all those conscious habits. Like, how come we're still hitting an income ceiling? Just to give you a quick example, I was working with one of my clients. I have a program called the 12-Week Breakthrough, where I help people make more than 12 weeks than in the previous 12 months while winning their lives back. And her name's Tamisa. She's a business owner in Arizona. And she's a self-proclaimed seminar junkie. She was going to all these seminars, she was doing okay. In fact, she was doing 6 figures in her business, but she just kept hitting that plateau. I call it the income ceiling, right? And she kept hitting that income ceiling no matter what happened, whatever she tried, no matter how many seminars she went to. So she joined my 12-week breakthrough. And in 2 weeks, she tripled her investment in the first 2 weeks. We hadn't even gotten to the money part yet. Right? We hadn't even started talking about money. What this was about helping her realize, number one, her unconscious head trash. Right? As I was just talking about earlier, right? So that's the first thing that everybody listening to this program needs to do. Number one, write down your goals. Again, I know you've heard that before. Oh, set your goals. Yeah, but did you set them in the way that I talked about earlier? The being, doing, and having. That's number one. Number two, understand then what are you saying to you about the fact of why you can't have it, or why you won't do it, or why you can't do it, or oh, I don't have the time, I don't have the money, I can't afford it, I don't know where to start. There's always the same excuses. And guess what? We humans have an infinite capacity to make ourselves right, right? There's an old saying that, is attributed to Henry Ford, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. Well, I actually like to update that. With all due respect to Mr. Ford, I updated it. And what I say is that whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you make yourself right. You make yourself right. Oh, no, I don't want to do this, but I don't have the time. I don't have the money. Well, guess what? Then you won't have the time and you won't have the money. Meanwhile, I can show you that you and I and Bill Gates and Elon Musk and Mark Cuban, we all have the same 24 hours. So you can't, no, it's not about time. And, I can show you all the ways that you're wasting money. Oh, and then, but I got to have this. Do you really have to have that? Again, I'm not trying to say, don't have fun things. I'm saying, all of these lies that we tell ourselves are in fact the reasons that we're keeping ourselves stuck. So, with clients like Tamisa, I mean, just saying these things, and she went, "Oh my gosh, I never thought of it this way," tripled in 2 weeks. So there's lots of examples like that. So that's where somebody can start right now today.
That is your adjusted reality moment. So we all have the same 24 hours. And I just want to stop right there and pause for a moment. Everybody has the same amount of time in their day. And what you just said was a reflection. You will make yourself right. That's a statement. When you start to recognize those mental roadblocks, you will make yourself right. I don't have enough time. So you don't. As my son would say, I couldn't get the A because it was too hard and I wasn't smart enough. Okay, stop. That's your mental roadblock. How do we break through those trashy moments? Adjusted Reality is here with Dr. Noah St. John to break through these trashy moments. So I love that you're giving examples and you're kind of sharing with us. First, you have to recognize that there are conscious opportunities to be aware of your trash. And then there's unconscious habits that get cultivated. So tell us more.
Absolutely. So, and by the way, I came up with this term head trash many years ago too, because everybody talks about limiting beliefs and holding yourself back, and everybody talks about that. I realized that when I came up with the term head trash, I realized it's actually very, very accurate, because think about this for a second, and everybody listening, just do this imagination exercise. I like to do this also with my audience members. So imagine that you're in your home, and most people, you take the trash out every week, right? You have a trash day, you take it out, they take the trash, right? So I want you to imagine that this week you say, you know what? I don't feel like taking the trash out. I think I'm just going to leave it. Okay. And so you let a week go by, you don't take the trash out. And then another week goes by, I don't feel like taking it out this week either. All right. So just leave it, let it pile up. Don't take it out next week, maybe a month goes by, maybe 3 months, 6 months, a year goes by, and maybe 2 or 3 years. And you don't take out the trash. How's your house doing right now? I mean,
It's stinking bad.
it's really, really bad, right? I mean, have you ever watched those shows on TV, hoarders and things like that? And you're like, I mean, it's incredibly unhealthy, unsafe, and on, right? I mean, it's nasty, even just to think about it, right? It's gross. So imagine, so now I want you to think about, how many people do you know that haven't taken out the trash in their head for 5, 10, 20, 30 years or more, right? So that's the point. That's why when I use that term head trash, I use it really, really on purpose. In fact, I actually call it the head trash clearing session. I have a head trash clearing session that we do, and you can just go to helpmenoah.com. Very simple. Helpmenoah.com, and I will take out or show you how to take out your head trash. We call it the head trash clearing session. It's $199 value, but it's absolutely free because you're listening to this program. Helpmenoah.com, and that's what people help me know. I'm like,
that's the key here is when you start to recognize some of us are 20 years old listening to this program, and that's beautiful because you have a lot less head trash. Exactly. Or you could be in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and some hopefully in their 90s, and maybe we have a centennial listening, and God bless you for that. But think about the trash that you do collect during your years, things that people say, things that you tried and then you should have tried again. You don't hit a home run on your first time up to bat. And then you start building on these programs in your mind, and they run continuously. And you're very gracious in being able to tell our listeners, hey, we need to take this stuff out. How do we do it? We'll learn more. I mean, not everything can be stuck into 10-second sound bites. We need time. So kind of in a nutshell, when you start thinking about those unconscious habits, once you get rid of a lot of the head trash, I'm particularly interested in watching the really successful people that I've been around in my life, including you, that do things unconsciously. And I want our listeners to kind of hear, what are some of the unconscious, highly successful habits that people cultivate?
Yes, absolutely. And so that's why over 25 years ago, when I discovered, what was missing, I realized I had to create a program, a system, a framework that would fix the actual problem. So what I often tell my clients is very simple. This is the problem that's causing all your other problems, right? And so your head trash, when you really think about it, is in fact the one problem that's causing all your other problems. Because people say, oh, well, I've got a money problem, or I've got a time problem, or I'm just too busy, or, I don't have the right connections, or whatever it is. And all those things may be true, but those are symptoms, right? And everybody's focused on symptoms. And when you focus on symptoms, but you don't treat the cause, what happens to the symptoms? Well, of course, they don't get better. In fact, they usually get worse. Right. And so the analogy I always use is going to the dentist. Right. So imagine if you had a toothache and you're like, man, my tooth really hurts. Right. And when you have a toothache, you can't think of anything else, but man, this really, really hurts. So, of course, you make an appointment to go to the dentist. And, you're sitting there in the chair and you say, doc, this really hurts. And he looks at it and goes, yep, you got a cavity there. Okay, next. And you're like, wait a
Yeah,
minute. What do you mean
wait.
next? Hey, what? Time out here, man. Wait, okay, now you told me what the problem is, but I want you to fix it. And then he says, oh, okay, right, no problem. I'll tell you what, here's a prescription. Just take these painkillers and then you won't feel the pain so bad. Now, what would you do in that case? You'd probably go, okay, this guy
Oh,
should be thrown out. I mean, what the heck are you doing here? But isn't that funny, sad, funny? But I mean, at number one, that's really how the Western medicine treats most illnesses, disease, and so forth, is they try to mask the symptoms. But number two, in my industry, the coaching industry, that's exactly what people are doing.
right.
Well, for example, I'll give you a perfect example is procrastination. Right. That's a habit that I don't think anyone would argue that procrastination is a healthy, productive habit. Right.
Not a
Well, I'm
healthy
procrastinating.
habit.
That means I'm going to reach my goals faster because I'm procrastinating. Really? I'm not saying that, man. So again, you kind of have to be crazy to think that procrastination is a good or productive habit. So anyway, so the point is, why do people procrastinate? Well, because of all these things I'm talking about, right? The head trash is the reason you're procrastinating, which is causing all these other problems, right? So what everybody else out there is doing is saying, well, if you're procrastinating, stop doing that. Oh, thanks a lot. Wow, I never thought of that. That's so great. I mean, duh, no kidding. It's
Here's
like
some painkillers for your cavity. Okay.
exactly. That's exactly what they're doing. That's what 99% of coaches and again people in this industry are doing. They're treating symptoms. So what I've been doing for over a quarter century is treating the cause, right? And that's another reason why I help people make a lot of money very quickly. I'll give you a quick example of that. I was actually speaking at a conference for entrepreneurs, right? There's about 1,000 entrepreneurs in the audience. These are like multiple 6, 7, 8-figure earners, high-powered people, successful people. I was talking about everything I'm talking about right now, talking about head trash and all these things, right? And so I was walking off the stage, and a man came up to me, and he literally practically grabbed me by the lapels, and he said, Noah, I want you to coach me. You are the coach that I've been looking for. Now, I didn't know this man from Adam. Ironically, his name was Adam. And so, true story. Anyway, so I said, okay, well, what's going on? He said, Noah, my company, he said, I own this company, and we have been stuck at the same level for the past 4 years. We got to 7 figures really fast, but we've been stuck for 4 years. And he said, I spent all this money. I've gone to all the gurus, all the marketing guys, all this, and the other, spent all this money, but we can't break through this income ceiling that you were just talking about. And he said, as soon as I heard you speak about everything you just said, he said, I knew inside that you were the coach that I've been looking for. So that's why I love working with high achievers, right? Because they make decisions quickly and friendly. He didn't mess around. He just boom, and he hired me on the spot. Anyway, I coached him for about 18 months. In that 18 months, we actually got his company from being stuck at the same level for the previous 4 years to over 20 million in revenues in less than 18 months. That's a 600% increase. And it was because of what I'm talking about right now. He wasn't aware of this. And see, this is another thing that I want everyone listening to realize. This is a very important point. Nobody wakes up in the morning with this head trash, as I call it, as a conscious thought. In other words, nobody wakes up in the morning and say, wow, this looks like a great day. The birds are singing, the sun's shining. You know what? I think I'm going to hold myself back from success today. Right? I mean, no one would ever say that, right? Because that's a conscious thought. No one would ever do that. But see, it doesn't matter, right? We've all heard the saying or the phrase, as you sow, so shall you reap, right? So what are we sowing? We're sowing seeds of thought, but most people are sowing really lousy thought seeds, right? And those are becoming really lousy results and creating lousy habits like procrastination and so forth. So, just bringing it to the conscious mind, bring it to the surface, then we can look at it and we go, wait a minute, I didn't even know I was doing that. Right. And that's why we see these huge, I call them hockey stick results, because, they're kind of going along like this and then whoo, and it's pretty exciting.
What's exciting to hear you say is that it's recognition first and foremost. It's being able to have a coach who fills in the gaps, because it's all nice and fuzzy to have the 7 habits of highly successful people. It's all nice and wonderful to read Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, but there's pieces that may be missing for many of us, and those pieces really put the jigsaw puzzle together. And you're coming in with a first and foremost, you got to look at yourself, and you got to look at what is really messing up the thought pattern to, yes, you need to make goals, and we've all heard that, but we also need to know what's holding us back from achieving these goals. What's building on those really important next steps, those habits. And I love what you said because it feeds back to the chiropractic lifestyle, which is you treat the cause. You treat the
Exactly.
cause of where the problem is, because everything then springboards from that. Once you have a proper diagnosis, once you understand what the diagnosis that's holding you back is, it's just like any other issue that you face in your life, whether it's the tooth decay, the cavity, or whether it's I want to break through my 7 figure and move to 8. That's a beautiful thing. Now, you're talking to me about my head trash, and now I want to say, how do I stop it? Like it's so automatic because I've been practicing it for so long.
Yep.
And health and wealth go together, folks. If you think you can have wealth without your health, you're sadly mistaken, because as soon as you talk to someone who has sustained a very difficult diagnosis like cancer, it's so hard for you to want to put your wealth hat on. It's just difficult to put your shoes on for that day. So we want to prevent you from getting sick in the first place. And much like you grew up, Dr. Noah, with being dirt poor, you get it. You don't want to ever go back there. Who wants to go back to the dirt? So now I want you to talk to me and
Right.
our listeners about it's automatic. The head trash comes in. You've this record has played in the same groove. That was an old joke for many of you who are listening that have no idea what a record
What?
is.
What? A what?
It's been in the same groove. You're over and over saying the same thing. Now what happens?
Well, so one of the going back to what I was talking about is when I discovered what was missing, I realized I've got to create a system that fixes the actual problem. That's, by the way, going to your point, that's one of the reasons I love working with chiropractors, because they get this when I talk about symptoms and causes. That's what they do every single day. In fact, one of my clients was a fourth generation chiropractor up in Canada, and she had a dream to take her family on a trip to the Grand Canyon. And I asked her, I said, well, like, when would you like to do that? She said, oh, man, if we could do that in like the next 5 to 7 years, that would be incredible. Well, we got her there in less than 18 months
Oh,
because of what I taught her, and what I helped her, put together. I mean, so her website wasn't making any money. Now she's doing, 6 figures on autopilot. So, I mean, it's just awesome. What can happen. So going back to what I was saying is that's why I created something called the Power Habits of Unconsciously Successful People. So the Power Habits is a system. It's a framework that always works. One of my very early coaching clients said, Noah, do you realize that your coaching is the only coaching that fixes every other coaching? And I'm like, yeah, you're right. It kind of does do that, doesn't it? And I'm like, yeah, I like that he said it. I didn't have to say that. But anyway, so one of the things that we really want to focus on, going back to what I was saying, understanding what you want, understanding the head trash that's holding you back from that. And then, the third thing that really need to do is start implementing the power habits system. Now there's 11 power habits, and it's all, mapped out in my books and my courses and my coaching. But one of the things that you can do right now, that one of the things that I really enjoy is talking about afformations. So that's something that I invented over 25 years ago. And you can see this is my book here from Hay House called The Book of Afformations. There it is with the question mark. And you can go to afformations.com and learn more about that. AFFORMATIONS, afformations. So everybody who knows what an affirmation is a statement of something you want to be true, right? And every guru on the planet talks about that. I've been talking about it for decades. So one of the things I like to do at my live events or my virtual events, my keynote speeches is, all right, everybody, I say to my audience members, all right, everybody, now we're going to use an affirmation just like they taught us. And everybody say, I am rich. And everybody goes, I am rich. And you know what happens next? Everyone starts laughing. And I go, well, what are you laughing at? And they go, well, I'm not rich. And I say, but you just said you were. And they go, yeah, but I don't believe it. So, isn't that the problem with the old method, right? With the old way
yes.
we say these statements, we want to believe them, but, we just don't believe it, right? So now the gurus for decades would say, well, listen, if you don't believe your affirmations, just repeat it 1,000 million billion cajillion times until you believe it someday. Okay, well, for some people that worked, but do you know that a scientific study was done? This is true. A scientific study was actually done on this very topic And it found that 75% of people who use the old method, the old affirmations method, actually end up more frustrated than before.
Ah,
So
yes.
imagine if you had a phone that didn't work 3 out of the 4 times you went to use the phone. You'd probably get a new phone, wouldn't you?
Yep.
Well, that's what I invented. I invented a new phone for your brain. And so my afformations method, which again is spelled AFFORMATIONS, afformations, you can go to afformations.com, learn more about it, is using empowering questions. All right. So instead of saying something like, I'm happy, I'm rich, I'm successful, and your brain goes, no, you're not. Right. Instead, you ask a question. Why am I so rich? Why am I so happy? Why am I always in the right place doing the right thing with the right people? Now, because of the embedded presupposition factor of the brain, now that's just a fancy way of saying when you ask a question, your brain automatically searches for the answer, right? So this is what I discovered. It was April 1997, so 26 years ago now. It was actually in the shower. So I call it in my books, my programs, I call it the shower that changed everything, right?
Yeah.
Probably most people listening have had that aha moment or eureka, in the shower, bath. I mean, this goes back to the ancient Greeks. So it's very,
100%.
very famous thing. But anyway, for me, it was the shower that changed everything. And so this is what I've been teaching, my clients and my books and seminars for over a quarter century now. And so using the embedded presupposition factor, we use these empowering questions rather than statements, because statements, you basically trying to bash your brain into submission, which basically works for maybe 1 out of 4 people. Whereas the embedded presupposition factor, my afformations method, well, you're already doing it. Every single person on this planet, believe it or not, every single person is already using my afformations method. There's just 2 problems. Number one, of course, they don't even know they're doing it. And number two, most people are asking really lousy questions. Like, why am I so stupid? Why am I so fat? Why can't I do anything right? Why don't I have, enough patients or clients? Or why is there more month left at the end of the money? And when you ask lousy questions, what do you get? You get lousy answers. And that creates lousy habits, which creates a lousy life. So using my afformations method, which is what's a foundational power habit that unconsciously successful people do that they don't know they're doing, remember? And number
Uh-huh.
two, they can't teach it to you. So that's why I took the nerdiest nerd in the industry, that would be me, to actually break down exactly what they're doing, systematize it. And now I've been teaching it. And of course, we have thousands and thousands of success stories. And but anybody can do it. And what's amazing is you can literally do this. It takes less than 5 minutes a day, and you can totally change your questions, change your habits, change your results, and thereby change your life.
What I really love about this is it breaks down the old and it brings it to the new.
That's right.
And you get to those places like Socrates to say if you want to build the future, you have to get rid of the old. And you literally just got rid of it. It's like
Yep.
don't tell me that I'm rich when I'm not, because my brain tells me,
Right.
you're an idiot.
Right. That's
You're
right.
not rich. So get
That's
with
right.
it. But if you ask questions, and that's a really important piece, ask
Mhm.
the questions that you want for answers. And it does come true. And I love that we're starting to learn about the unconscious habits of the highly successful people, because when you start cultivating your habits in the people that are actually making it and doing it, why is adjusted reality such a powerful show? Oh, there we go. I just motivated them all to think about, why are they listening today? What makes it better for them? What is the things that balance their life? And then they become consciously aware. And that was one of the pieces too that I really enjoyed reading in your book is consciously adopt them for a more balanced life. How does that happen? How do we get more balanced life? Because you and me understand that health and wealth are they're best friends. And we recently went to NASDAQ to share with how do you build greater wealth with your employees? And that is adopting and optimizing their health. Now, you tell me, having worked with 8-figure people, how are they building the balanced life? Because you can be the workhorse or you can be the person riding the workhorse. And which one feels better? Well, we all know that working on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day or New Year's Day, we can all do it. The question is, do
Right.
we want to do it?
Right.
So tell me the balanced life in your world.
Well, yeah, it really comes down to what I call my freedom lifestyle formula. And so many years ago, because people ask me this question all the time, and I mean, I was asked over and over, well, what is success now? Well, what is success? And I go, well, blah, blah, blah. And I try to give the answer. Then I really, one day I was meditating, and that's where I get most of my ideas, it's through meditation.
Love it.
And that's practice that I do. And so I realized, wait a minute. So it really comes down to 4 elements of what I call it the freedom lifestyle formula. You call it success, fulfillment, happiness, wealth, whatever. But it's where you have an abundance of time, energy, relationships, and money. It's those four
Oh,
elements.
Say it again.
Okay.
Say it again, because this is really important.
Yeah.
Adopt this into your life because success really does mean this. So say it again, the
Yes.
4 elements.
The 4 elements of my freedom lifestyle formula are time, energy, relationships, and money. All right. So if you think about it, everybody listening can actually do this right now in like 30 seconds. Rate yourself on a scale from 1 to 10 of how stuck or abundant you feel in these 4 areas. How stuck or abundant you feel in time, right? Oh, no, I don't have any time. I got too much to do, too little time, right? So many people are, running around and doing all these things. They don't have time to spend with their kids or family, doing the things they want to do, et cetera. So scale of 1 to 10, scale of 1 to 10 on energy, right? You can be going through the day grateful, happy, joyful, or miserable, sad, frustrated, aggravated, and so on, right? So scale of 1 to 10, and then relationships, how you're doing in your relationships, and then money, right? So money's very important. People who say, oh, well, money doesn't buy happiness. I go, well, no, not really, but you can buy a yacht to pull right up next to it. So, there's
That
that.
is so true. That is so true. We're trying to squeeze 24 books into 40 minutes.
I'll have to
And
come back and we'll have to do another interview because boy,
I,
oh
I
boy.
I know we got down to some very important pieces here.
Yep.
And what I always enjoy having is the walk away moments, the ability for the listener to have, what do I work on now? Where do I start? And you gave them a really, really nice place to start. And you also talked about habits in building in, whether conscious or unconscious habits that individuals can create. In your world, though, for overall well-being, if you were to think about the 24 books that you put together, and this is not an easy question, so my audience, we may need to give him just a pause, because I love taking people that are so well qualified like you and having them just thoughtfully possess a moment in their life. If you were to take a habit that you think for you pushes someone towards the greatest progress for overall well-being, what's that habit for you?
Well, it really would be using my afformations method and doing it in a very conscious way. And what that is, I call it my core 4 formula. And that means every day you need to read, write, listen, and speak. My using my afformations method. So, reading, those are the 4 modes of human communication, right? That's how the 4 ways we humans communicate: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. That's pretty much it. Right. So you want to read. So of course you can read my books. You can, go through my online courses. Writing, you want to write out. We also have an afformations journal. You can just, search for that on Amazon. We have that available and other things. Reading, writing, speaking, you want to say them out loud. By the way, a lot of my clients, they do it with their spouse, their kids. Kids love afformations, by the way. We have teenagers doing it, 20, 30, up to 90 and 100-year-olds, like you were saying earlier. And then you want to listen to them. So actually, when you go on our website, we have programs called or products called iAfform audios. iAfform, like iTunes, right?
Yeah.
iAfform, and so you can actually listen to your empowering afformations. And I pre-recorded 101 of my favorite afformations on, like health, wealth, love, lowering your stress, sleeping better, and some of the big issues that people have. So you can listen to those. So when you do the reading, writing, speaking, and listening, there's literally no way you can't change your life. And that's one of the things that I really love about this power habit system. And one of my clients said this also, Noah, when people follow this, it just never not works. It can't not work. And I'm like, I like that. I like a thing that can't not work rather than a thing that might work or could work. It can't not work.
This works. And Dr. Noah, your expertise, your time that you've spent crafting the greats into today's world where, I would imagine that if you think about Napoleon Hill, what would he do with the internet? I mean, it is awesome where you are and being able to use some of the great works, but filling in the gaps and being able to decipher what really is some of the fundamental and unfortunate habits that don't feed you well, that just like your health, if you feed this well, your wealth will grow, your health will also prosper, because when you can eat better, when you can think better, when you're creating these beautiful moments in your life on a daily basis, you begin your success. And he just went through those 4 areas of success. It's such a beautiful thing. We're going to have you back
Oh,
100%.
thank you. All
There's
right.
way too much to cover here. So for my listeners, I want them to know that we will have Dr. Noah's back, but don't forget that he offered a fabulous book. Get rid of your head trash about money. You just go to sendmeabooknoah.com. It's free. It starts your thinking and your reality today. There it is right there. It's great. It's an opportunity for us to all grow. And that's what it's all about, is being able to grow together and as a community, being able to break through some of those barriers that hold us back. So as a very special thank you to Dr. Noah for giving the gifts, I want to thank him and welcome him back because I think we've got so much more to learn about our health and our wealth and how to combine both so we live the vital life that we are meant to live. So thank you so much, Dr. Noah St. John, for joining us today.
My pleasure.